What if ancient civilizations left us coded messages in stone, hidden clues etched into the very monuments that have stood for thousands of years? Across the globe, from the towering megaliths of Europe to the sun-baked ruins of South America, enigmatic symbols whisper secrets we still struggle to decipher. These markings aren't mere decorations. They're puzzles carved by hands long gone, waiting for someone, maybe even you, to uncover their meaning. Picture this: you're standing in front of a massive stone slab, its surface covered in intricate spirals, zigzags, and shapes that don't match any known language. Who put them there? Why? Were they warnings, maps, or messages to the gods? The truth is, despite all our modern knowledge, these prehistoric symbols remain one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. Some appear in cultures separated by oceans and millennia, as if echoing a shared idea lost to time. Others are so unique, so baffling, that they defy every explanation scholars can muster. This is a journey into the unknown, a deep dive into 30 of the most unexplained symbols ever discovered. We'll travel through time and space, from the cryptic carvings of Göbekli Tepe to the haunting glyphs of Easter Island, piecing together fragments of a story older than written history itself. Along the way, you'll encounter theories that range from the scientific to the supernatural, each more fascinating than the last. So, if you've ever wondered what secrets the ancients might have left behind, or if you simply love a good unsolved mystery, you're in the right place. Because by the end of this, you won't just see these symbols, you'll feel their pull, their unanswered questions tugging at the edges of your curiosity. Ready to unlock the past? Let's begin. The carvings at Göbekli Tepe are unlike anything else from their time, deliberate, intricate, and hauntingly precise. Picture a series of massive stone pillars arranged in circles, each one covered in a menagerie of creatures: foxes, scorpions, vultures, and beasts we can't even identify. But here's what stuns archaeologists. This site dates back 12,000 years, making it thousands of years older than Stonehenge or the pyramids. These symbols weren't just doodles, they were crafted with purpose. Some animals are rendered in astonishing detail, while others melt into abstract shapes, as if the carvers were towing the line between reality and something more symbolic. One leading theory suggests these carvings might be a celestial map, with certain animals representing constellations as they appeared in the night sky over 12 millennia ago. Imagine early humans tracking time or seasons through these stone markers, turning pillars into a prehistoric observatory. Others argue the symbols could be a form of proto-writing, a language of shapes and creatures meant to convey stories or warnings. The repetition of certain motifs, like the fearsome vultures, hints at ritual significance, possibly tied to death or spiritual beliefs we can only guess at. What's truly mind-bending is the level of skill involved. These weren't made by nomadic hunter-gatherers chipping away at rocks in their spare time. Göbekli Tepe's pillars required coordinated labor, advanced stone working tools, and a shared symbolic language, all evidence of a society far more complex than we ever imagined for that era. And then there's the mystery of why it was deliberately buried, as if someone wanted to preserve or hide these symbols for eternity. Were they safeguarding knowledge? Or was this a ritual act, sealing away something too powerful to leave exposed? The answers might still lie buried, waiting for the right clue to bring them to light. Hidden among the weathered stones of Stonehenge lies a mystery most visitors never notice: delicate spirals and cup marks carved into the surface, so subtle they could easily be mistaken for natural erosion. But look closer and you'll realize these patterns are anything but random. Unlike the towering trilithons that dominate the site, these carvings are intimate, almost secretive, as if meant to be discovered rather than displayed. Their placement is no accident either. Many align precisely with the rising and setting sun during solstices, suggesting they might have served as a primitive astronomical calendar, a way to mark the passage of time long before written records existed. Mainstream archaeologists argue these spirals could represent the cyclical nature of life and death, a theme common in Neolithic art. The cup marks, those small circular depressions, might have held symbolic offerings or been used in rituals to communicate with ancestors. But there's another layer to this puzzle. Some researchers point out that these carvings cluster along what are believed to be ancient energy lines, invisible pathways said to crisscross the earth, connecting sacred sites. Could Stonehenge's spirals act as conduits for some forgotten force? It's a theory that blurs the line between science and speculation. Even more intriguing is the resemblance these carvings bear to symbols found thousands of miles away. Similar spirals appear in Newgrange, Ireland, and even as far as Malta, raising the question, was this a shared visual language among prehistoric cultures? Or is there something inherently powerful about the spiral shape, its endless curve echoing the movement of the stars, the flow of water, or even the human journey from birth to rebirth? What's certain is that these markings weren't idle scratches. They were deliberate, purposeful, and perhaps even meant to outlast the people who carved them. The stones might be silent, but their spirals still turn, whispering secrets across millennia. Deep within the darkened chambers of Newgrange, Ireland's 5,200-year-old passage tomb, a single symbol dominates the ancient stone, the triple spiral. Etched with stunning precision, this interconnected trio of curves isn't just decoration. It's a masterpiece of Neolithic art pulsating with possible meaning. Unlike random scratches or crude markings, the spiral's symmetry suggests deliberate intent, as if its creators sought to encode something vital into the very rock itself. One compelling theory links it to cycles: birth, death, and rebirth, mirroring the eternal rhythms of nature. The tomb's alignment with the winter solstice sunrise reinforces this idea. For just 17 minutes each year, as the shortest day dawns, a narrow beam of sunlight pierces the tomb's entrance, crawling along the floor until it illuminates the spiral directly. It's as though the ancestors designed this moment, a celestial spotlight activating the symbol like a prehistoric message in stone. But the triple spiral might hold deeper layers of symbolism. Some scholars tie it to ancient goddess worship, particularly the concept of a triple deity, maiden, mother, and crone, representing the stages of life. Others propose it could map the sun's journey through the three key phases of the day: dawn, noon, and dusk. Remarkably, similar triple spirals appear in artifacts as far away as Malta and Brittany, hinting at a shared cultural language across Neolithic Europe. Was this a universal symbol understood by distant tribes who never met? The craftsmanship alone defies expectations. Carved without metal tools, the spiral's fluid lines reveal an almost supernatural patience, each curve echoing the next in perfect harmony. This wasn't just ritual art, it was sacred geometry, a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. And here's the chilling part. Newgrange's builders sealed the tomb after its completion, burying the spiral in darkness for millennia. Did they intend for it to be rediscovered, or was it meant to stay hidden, guarding secrets we're only beginning to grasp? The triple spiral doesn't just sit on the stone, it twists through time, demanding we unravel its mystery. On the sun-scorched island of Malta, the temple complex of Haga Kim hides some of the most mesmerizing symbols from the ancient world: whirling spirals and haunting eye motifs carved into limestone over 5,000 years ago. These aren't just random decorations, they pulse with an almost hypnotic rhythm, drawing you into their curves as if they're meant to mesmerize. The spirals coil inward like whirlpools, some tight and precise, others sprawling across the stone in expansive loops. Then there are the eyes, stark, almond-shaped carvings that seem to watch you from the walls, their gazes frozen in time. Were they meant to represent the eyes of gods, portals to other realms, or perhaps even visions seen in trance states? What's startling is how these symbols cluster in the temple's darkest chambers, spaces where flickering torchlight would have brought the carvings to life, making the spirals appear to spin and the eyes gleam. This isn't just artistry, it's engineered atmosphere designed to alter perception. Some researchers tie the spirals to fertility cults, pointing out how their endless coils mirror the cycles of life and growth. Others suggest they could be maps of altered states, tracing the labyrinthine journeys of shamans who used ritual or plant-based brews to commune with the divine. The eyes, meanwhile, echo motifs found in distant cultures, from the all-seeing eye of Egyptian hieroglyphs to the ocular symbols in Anatolian shrines. Was this a shared visual language across the Mediterranean, or something deeper, something hardwired into the human psyche? The precision of these carvings defies their age. Without metal tools, the temple builders achieved curves so smooth they seem poured rather than chiseled. Even more intriguing is how these symbols appear alongside altars and niches lined with animal bones and figurines, clues that Haga Kim was a place of ceremony, possibly even ecstatic worship. Could the spirals have guided dancers into trance, their movements syncing with the carved patterns until the boundaries between earth and spirit blurred? And why do nearly identical motifs appear in Sardinia's prehistoric tombs and the rock art of coastal Spain? The answer might lie in the sea itself. Malta was a crossroads of ancient trade, and with goods came ideas, symbols that sailed from shore to shore, evolving but always retaining their primal power. Today, these carvings still pull at something deep within us. Spirals dominate modern hypnosis techniques and sacred art, while the eye remains a universal symbol of watchfulness and wisdom. Maybe the temple builders knew something we're still rediscovering, that certain shapes speak directly to the human soul, bypassing language altogether. The stones of Haga Kim don't just hold symbols, they hold spells woven in stone and waiting for the right moment to awaken. Stretching across the windswept plains of Brittany, the Karnak alignments stand as one of Europe's most baffling prehistoric puzzles. A sprawling army of over 6,000 weathered megaliths arranged in eerie, precise rows. But it's not just their sheer number that mystifies researchers. It's the cryptic symbols etched into their surfaces. Among the most striking are the recurring chevrons, sharp, zigzagging lines that resemble marching geese, and undulating wave patterns that seem to ripple across the stone. These aren't random scratches, they're deliberate, repeating motifs that hint at a language beyond our understanding. One compelling theory suggests these markings served as territorial boundaries, a way for Neolithic communities to mark sacred or communal land. The chevrons, with their aggressive angles, might have signaled warnings, while the softer waves could indicate water sources or fertile ground. But there's another layer to this mystery. Some astronomers point out that key alignments of these stones correspond to solstice sunrises and lunar standstills, suggesting the carvings might function as a colossal calendar. Imagine standing among these stones 3,000 years before the Common Era, watching as the first light of midsummer kisses a specific chevron, a living, stone-bound clock ticking with celestial precision. Then there's the seismic theory. Brittany sits atop ancient fault lines, and the wave motifs bear an uncanny resemblance to seismograph readings. Could these carvings encode ancestral knowledge of earthquakes, passed down through generations as a survival guide? It's a tantalizing idea, especially when you consider how some stones cluster in patterns that mirror geological hotspots. What's truly remarkable is the consistency of these symbols across hundreds of miles. From Karnak to smaller, lesser-known sites, the same chevrons and waves reappear, as if part of a shared Neolithic vocabulary. Were they the work of a single culture, or did different tribes adopt these signs independently, tapping into some universal human impulse? The stones don't speak, but their symbols vibrate with intention, a code carved not just into rock, but into the very landscape itself. Every mark feels like a fingerprint left by hands we'll never meet, yet somehow still recognize. Hidden deep in the labyrinth of France's Lascaux cave, a single panel stands apart from the breathtaking animal murals. the so-called shaft scene. Painted 17,000 years ago, this enigmatic tableau shows a sprawled human figure with a bird-like head, a wounded bison, and a curious geometric symbol resembling a barbed spear or a flowering branch. Unlike the cave's vibrant horse and aurochs depictions, this scene feels disjointed, almost surreal, as if the artist sought to capture something beyond the physical world. One school of thought interprets this as a shamanic vision. The bird-headed man could represent a spirit mid-transformation, his avian features signaling flight into the supernatural realm. The bison, guts spilled from its belly, might symbolize a sacrificial offering, a bridge between worlds. Even the spear's odd design takes on new meaning, not a weapon but a conduit for energy channeling the shaman's journey. Ethnographic studies of modern hunter-gatherer rituals lend weight to this theory, with many cultures using animal imagery to depict trance states. But there's another, equally compelling angle: astronomy. The bison's horns curve in a way that mirrors the Pleiades cluster's shape as it appeared in the Ice Age sky. The spear could trace Orion's belt, while the birdman's posture aligns with specific star patterns. If correct, this wouldn't just be art, it'd be a celestial map encoding ancestral knowledge of the heavens. What truly baffles scholars is the scene's isolation. While other Lascaux paintings cluster in communal spaces, this one lies at the end of a narrow, treacherous shaft, suggesting it was meant for select eyes only. Was it a secret initiation, a record of a near-death experience, or perhaps a warning frozen in ochre and time? The figures seem to vibrate with urgency, as if the painter feared forgetting something vital. Then there's the detail no one can ignore: the birdman's erect phallus, a rare explicit depiction in Paleolithic art. Some argue it signifies life emerging from death, a rebirth motif. Others see it as evidence of ritual ecstasy, where the boundaries between human and spirit dissolve. Whatever the truth, the shaft scene refuses to fit neatly into any single theory. It's a Rorschach test carved in stone, reflecting back whatever questions we dare to ask. What lingers is the sense that this wasn't mere storytelling. Every stroke feels intentional, every element charged with meaning. The bison isn't just dying, it's giving. The birdman isn't just falling, he's ascending. And that strange geometric shape, it might be the key to everything, a cipher we've yet to crack. 17 millennia later, the shaft scene still guards its secrets, whispering to us from the shadows of prehistory. Tucked within the sprawling stone circles of Avebury stands a trio of megaliths known as the Cove. Their surfaces etched with concentric rings and sinuous grooves that refuse to fit neatly into any known category. Unlike the bold spirals of Newgrange or the stark animal carvings of Göbekli Tepe, these markings are subtle, almost ghostly, as if the stones themselves are whispering through time. Some grooves run parallel like ancient tally marks, while others curve into perfect rings no wider than a thumbprint. What's eerie is how these patterns cluster near the bases of the stones, hidden from casual view, almost as if they weren't meant for human eyes at all. One radical hypothesis suggests these carvings could be Neolithic energy maps. Dowser's practitioners who claim to detect Earth's invisible energy lines report intense electromagnetic anomalies near the cove, aligning precisely with the grooves. Could these markings trace subterranean water veins or ley lines, turning the stones into amplifiers of some forgotten terrestrial power? It's a notion that blurs archaeology with metaphysics, especially when you consider how the cove's alignment mirrors the sunrise during the equinoxes, bathing the grooves in light at key moments. Mainstream archaeology offers a more grounded but no less fascinating explanation: grain measurement. The concentric circles match the dimensions of ancient ceramic vessels used for storing surplus crops. Were these grooves Neolithic accounting records, notched into stone to track harvests or trade? The theory gains traction when you examine similar markings found near granary sites across Europe. Yet there's a twist: some grooves contain traces of ochre, hinting at ritual use. Maybe the stones served a dual purpose, part ledger, part altar, where the practical and sacred intertwined. Then there's the surveying angle. The groove's precision echoes later Roman groma markings used for land division. Could Avebury's builders have employed these stones as prehistoric surveying tools, their carvings acting as directional markers for aligning earthworks or celestial events? The debate intensifies when you compare them to analogous symbols in Orkney's Neolithic villages, where similar grooves appear near astronomical sightlines. What's undeniable is the cove's air of intentional secrecy. These symbols don't announce themselves, they wait to be discovered, crouched at the edges of perception. Whether they are energy conduits, agricultural records, or something far more esoteric, one thing is clear: the hands that carved them understood the stones weren't just rock. They were canvases for messages we're only beginning to glimpse, and perhaps that was the point all along. The Tarxian temples in Malta hold some of the most hypnotic spiral carvings ever discovered, twisting, interlocking designs that seem to pulse with movement even after 4,000 years of silence. These aren't just decorative patterns, they're masterworks of Bronze Age artistry, their coils so perfectly balanced they create an almost optical illusion, drawing the eye deeper into their maze-like forms. One dominant theory suggests these spirals could be blueprints for ritual labyrinths, physical or spiritual pathways meant to guide initiates through ceremonial journeys. The resemblance to later Cretan labyrinth designs is uncanny, hinting at a cultural exchange across the Mediterranean long before written history. Imagine priests or pilgrims tracing these spirals with their fingers, their footsteps mirroring the carved paths in a sacred dance of transformation. But there's another compelling interpretation: hydrology. Malta's survival has always depended on managing scarce water, and the spiral's flowing lines bear a striking similarity to ancient irrigation maps found in Mesopotamian clay tablets. Could these carvings encode knowledge of underground springs or seasonal flood patterns? The temple's alignment with rainwater runoff channels adds weight to this idea, suggesting the spirals might have served as both spiritual symbols and practical guides for survival. Then there's the underworld connection. Excavations at Tarxian revealed charred animal bones and altars stained with sacrificial offerings, all clustered near the spiral panels. Some scholars argue the coils represent the cyclical journey of soul's entry, transformation, and rebirth mirrored in the temple's layout. The largest spiral sits at the innermost chamber, a destination point that would have been reached only after passing through progressively darker, narrower corridors. This architectural choreography turns the temple itself into a three-dimensional symbol with the spiral as its climax. What's most astonishing is the technical skill behind these carvings. Using nothing but stone tools, artisans achieved curves so precise they rival modern laser etchings. The depth of each groove varies deliberately, shallow at the edges, deepening toward the center, creating a shadow play that would have been magnified by flickering torchlight. This wasn't just art, it was engineered atmosphere designed to overwhelm the senses. And then there's the mystery of the missing pieces. Some spirals appear abruptly truncated, as if continuing onto stones that were deliberately removed or destroyed. Were they secrets too powerful to leave intact, or fragments of a larger message we'll never fully reconstruct? The Tarxian spirals don't just decorate the temple, they activate it, turning stone into a living conduit between the seen and unseen. Their whispers aren't just from the past, they're an invitation coiled in patience, waiting for the right moment to unravel. Beneath the rolling green hills of Ireland's Brú na Bóinne lies Noath Passage Tomb, a treasure trove of prehistoric artistry, over 300 massive stones, each one etched with intricate engravings that have baffled researchers for decades. Among the swirling spirals and serpentine lines, one pattern stands out, a series of precise crescents and radiating lines like frozen bursts of moonlight. These aren't random scratches, they're deliberate, repeating designs that some experts believe could form Europe's earliest known lunar calendar, predating even the pyramids of Egypt by centuries. The crescents appear in clusters, often paired with radiating lines that fan outward like sunbeams, or in this case, moonbeams. One compelling theory suggests these symbols map the moon's 18.6-year cycle, a complex astronomical pattern that tracks how the moon's position shifts relative to the horizon. It's a phenomenon so subtle that modern astronomers only began documenting it systematically in the 17th century. Yet here, carved into stone 5,000 years ago, are markings that might encode this very knowledge. Imagine Neolithic sky watchers tracking the moon's subtle dance, etching their observations into rock as a way to predict eclipses or time agricultural rites. The precision is staggering. Some crescents are shallow and delicate, while others are deep and bold, possibly marking key lunar phases or celestial events. But the mystery deepens when you examine the stone's placement. Many engraved slabs line the tomb's narrow passageways, positioned so that moonlight would graze their surfaces during specific lunar standstills, the points where the moon appears to pause in its journey across the sky. During these rare alignments, the shadows cast by the stone's carvings create moving patterns, transforming the tomb into a dynamic lunar observatory. It's as if the builders designed Noth to be more than a burial site. It was a living instrument harmonizing with the cosmos. Not everyone agrees with the lunar calendar interpretation. Some archaeologists argue the crescents could represent abstract fertility symbols or even stylized boats, reflecting the spiritual journey of the dead. Others point to similar motifs in contemporary megalithic art across Europe, suggesting a shared symbolic language rather than an isolated astronomical record. Yet what's undeniable is the sophistication behind these engravings. The repeating patterns show mathematical consistency. Spacings between crescents correspond to known lunar intervals, and their orientations align with measurable lunar extremes. Then there's the question of why. Why go to such lengths to document the moon's movements? For agrarian societies, tracking lunar cycles could mean the difference between famine and feast, knowing when to plant, harvest, or conduct rituals to ensure bounty. But the tomb's sacred context hints at something more. The moon's cyclical rebirth may have mirrored beliefs about the afterlife, with the dead following the same celestial rhythms back into the world of the living. The stones don't just record time, they dissolve it, merging the practical and the spiritual into a single, eternal language. What's haunting is how much we might still be missing. Over a third of Noth stones remain unexcavated, their secrets still buried. The ones we can see already rewrite history, proving that Neolithic minds were capable of abstract, scientific thought long before the advent of written language. These crescents aren't just art, they're a bridge across millennia, a whispered conversation between past and present. And if they truly are a lunar calendar, they stand as a testament to humanity's oldest obsession, not just to mark time, but to make it sacred. High on the cliffs of Andalusia, the Cueva de los Letreros hides one of Europe's most enigmatic prehistoric galleries. A procession of stick-figure humans frozen mid-movement, their arms raised as if caught in an eternal dance. Painted with ochre over 7,000 years ago, these schematic figures seem simple at first glance, but their very simplicity is the puzzle. Unlike the detailed animal portraits of Lascaux or Altamira, these are abstracted to their essence, lines for limbs, dots for heads, and postures so dynamic they practically vibrate off the rock. One prevailing theory casts them as ritual dancers, capturing a ceremonial moment where the boundaries between human and spirit blurred. The postures, arms uplifted, legs bent in unison, mirror those seen in ethnographies of shamanic trance dances from Siberia to the Amazon. Some figures even appear to wear horned headdresses, suggesting transformations into animal spirits. But there's a celestial twist. When mapped against the night sky, certain groupings align with the Pleiades and Orion's belt, as if the cave wall doubled as a star chart. Could these be ancestor figures joining the cosmic dance, or constellations personified as mythic beings? The plot thickens when you examine their resemblance to later Iberian script symbols. A figure with forked legs mirrors a character in the Tartessian alphabet, while another with a crescent-shaped head evokes early Levantine writing. Some scholars argue these aren't just paintings, they're proto-writing, a bridge between art and language. If true, it would mean literacy's roots stretch back millennia earlier than currently believed, seeded in the gestures of prehistoric performers. Yet the cave's acoustics hint at another layer. The dancers cluster near a natural resonance chamber where whispers amplify into echoes. Experiments show rhythmic chanting here produces auditory illusions of multiple voices perfect for rituals meant to summon unseen forces. Were these figures painted as invitations for spirits to join the dance, or perhaps as instructions for initiates, a visual guide to sacred movement? What lingers is the uncanny modernity of their abstraction. These figures feel less like ancient art and more like pictograms from a future civilization, their stripped-down forms echoing everything from subway signage to emojis. Maybe that's their real magic. They refuse to belong wholly to any one interpretation, dancing instead between ritual, astronomy, and language. The cliffs have held their secret for 7,000 years. The dancers aren't telling, they're too busy moving to the music of the stars. Cut into the rock faces of Italy's Valcamonica Valley, the Communion Rose stands out like a beacon, a spoked wheel with 6 or 9 curving petals radiating outward, its design so precise it could have been carved yesterday. Yet this symbol dates back 10,000 years, one of the most enduring mysteries of European prehistoric art. At first glance, it resembles a compass, rose, or a starburst, but its purpose goes far deeper than simple decoration. The valley's ancient artists peppered over 200,000 petroglyphs across the landscape, yet none capture the imagination quite like this one. One compelling theory links the rose to solar worship. Its rays mirror the sun's path across the sky, and many carvings cluster near natural alcoves where sunlight strikes at solstice dawn, illuminating the symbol like a celestial spotlight. Archaeologists have found similar sun wheel motifs in Bronze Age metalwork across Europe, suggesting a shared cosmological language. But here's the twist: local folklore insists these carvings were waymarkers, guiding travelers through treacherous mountain passes. The roses often appear near ancient trails, their petals pointing toward hidden springs or safe routes. Could they be both sacred symbols and practical survival tools? The connection to metalworking adds another layer. Valcamonica was a hub for copper and iron production, and the rose's design eerily resembles the crucibles used for smelting ore. Some researchers argue the symbol might encode metallurgical knowledge, its petals representing the stages of alloy creation. This duality, spiritual and industrial, reflects a culture that saw no divide between the sacred and the everyday. Fast forward to modern times, and the rose has become Lombardy's official emblem, a testament to its enduring power. Yet the original carvers left no manual. Was it a sun symbol, a map, a trade secret, or all three? The answer might lie in the way the light hits the valley at dawn, transforming stone into gold just as it did 10 millennia ago. In the scorched heart of the Sahara, the Tassili Enaja cave paintings defy every expectation of prehistoric art, floating figures with bulbous, helmeted heads and elongated limbs, their bodies suspended mid-air as if drifting through zero gravity. These aren't just stylized human forms, they're uncanny, otherworldly silhouettes that look like something ripped from a sci-fi comic. The largest of these so-called Martian figures stretches over 12 feet across the rock face, its torso striped with geometric patterns, while smaller beings cluster around it in postures that suggest motion, even urgency. The ancient astronaut theory latches onto these details with fervor. Proponents point to the helmets, round, seamless, and eerily reminiscent of modern space gear, as evidence of extraterrestrial contact. The floating poses, they argue, could depict weightlessness, while the geometric body markings might represent advanced suits or technology. Some even note that these paintings overlap with local oral traditions mentioning sky visitors who brought knowledge to early humans. It's a seductive narrative, one that transforms these caves into a prehistoric version of a UFO sighting log. But archaeologists counter with a far more earthbound explanation: shamanic ritual art. Across cultures, trance states induced by fasting or psychoactive plants often produce visions of floating, elongated beings. The helmets could symbolize ritual headdresses used in ceremonies, while the striped bodies mirror patterns seen in modern hunter-gatherer art during spirit journeys. Ethnographic parallels abound, from the sand people of the Kalahari to Siberian shamans, who describe merging with aerial spirits in strikingly similar terms. Even the caves themselves add weight to this theory. Tassili Enaja was once a lush savanna, a place where water pooled in caverns, creating natural echo chambers perfect for drumming and chanting. The paintings cluster in these acoustically active zones, as if the artists were marking portals to the spirit world. The debate grows richer when you examine the painting's context. These Martians often appear alongside more conventional scenes: herds of cattle, hunting parties, everyday life. Are they supernatural watchers overseeing human activity, or are they the star travelers of their time, rendered larger than life to denote their sacred status? The pigments tell another story: ochre mixed with egg white, a binder so durable it's preserved these figures for nearly 9,000 years. That's no casual doodle, it's a deliberate, painstaking act of preservation, as if the artists feared their message might fade. One detail rarely mentioned: the Martians often lack mouths. In shamanic traditions, spirits sometimes communicate telepathically, making speech irrelevant. Yet ancient astronaut theorists see this as further proof, a depiction of beings who didn't need to speak aloud. The truth might lie somewhere in between. Human imagination has always reached for the stars, whether through myth, religion, or art. Maybe these figures aren't aliens or spirits, but both a testament to how our ancestors grappled with the unknown, dressing it in the only vocabulary they had. What's undeniable is their power to unsettle. Even now, standing before these paintings, you feel the weight of their gaze. They don't just hang on the rock, they hover at the edge of understanding, daring us to label them. Perhaps that's their real purpose: not to answer our questions, but to keep us asking. Easter Island's Moai statues stand silent and stoic, their massive stone faces gazing inland, but turn them around and you'll find their backs tell a different story. Hidden from casual view, many Moai bear intricate petroglyphs, spirals, birdmen, and motifs so explicit they shocked early European explorers. These carvings aren't random graffiti, they're a desperate language of survival, etched during the island's ecological collapse. The most haunting is the birdman motif, a spindly figure with a hooked beak, often shown clutching an egg. To the Rapa Nui, this wasn't just art, it was the centerpiece of an annual ritual where warriors scaled cliffs to retrieve the first sooty tern egg of the season. The winner became the Tangata Manu, or birdman, a sacred intermediary between humans and gods for the year. But dig deeper and the symbol takes on darker meaning. As deforestation led to famine and warfare, the birdman cult surged, replacing the Moai religion. The petroglyphs mark this shift: stone prayers for renewal in a world teetering on edge. Then there are the vulva carvings clustered near freshwater springs. At first glance, they seem purely fertility symbols, but their placement tells a fuller story. With crops failing, these markings likely invoke the goddess Hina, associated with both childbirth and rain. The Moai's backs became altars, their grooves channeling precious water during ceremonies. Most chilling are the canoe motifs, etched with an urgency that suggests longing. By the time these appeared, the island's once great palm forests used to build ocean-going vessels were gone. The carvings might represent lost mobility, a people trapped by their own environmental ruin, dreaming of escape. What ties these symbols together is their eerie resemblance to Rongorongo, Easter Island's undeciphered script. Some petroglyphs feature the same crescent shapes and parallel lines found on surviving Rongorongo tablets. Were these carvings a proto-writing system, evolving as oral traditions faltered? Or did they serve as mnemonic devices for chants meant to restore balance? Either way, they capture a society in transition, scrambling to preserve knowledge as resources vanished. The Moi's fronts project power, their backs reveal vulnerability, a duality carved in stone. These symbols don't just decorate rock, they howl across centuries, warning of what happens when a culture outgrows its world. While the Nazca Line's swooping animal figures steal the spotlight, their lesser-known geometric counterparts hold mysteries just as profound. Scattered across Peru's arid plateau, these precise circles, trapezoids, and multilayered labyrinths, often dubbed mandalas, transform the desert floor into a colossal canvas of sacred geometry. Unlike the biomorphic glyphs visible from nearby hills, these designs reveal their full complexity only from above, raising the chilling question, who were they meant to see? One theory casts them as ritual pathways. The zigzagging corridors and concentric rings bear striking resemblance to Andean ceremonial dance routes still used today during festivals like the Qhapak Nyan. Walk these patterns and you're tracing footsteps of ancestors who may have performed cosmographic journeys, their movements mirroring celestial cycles. Archaeologists have found offerings, spondylus shells, and ceramic fragments embedded along these geometric borders, suggesting they weren't just walked but worshipped. Then there's the hydrological angle. Many mandalas cluster near ancient aqueducts called puquillos, their shapes aligning with underground water veins. The Nazca, masters of desert survival, could have used these glyphs as monumental maps, spirals marking aquifer recharge zones, rectangles denoting irrigation districts. Recent satellite imagery reveals how certain trapezoids channel fog condensation into micro-watersheds, turning art into a life-saving technology. Astronomers propose another layer. These mandalas might encode celestial knowledge. The five-pointed star glyph matches Venus's 8-year cycle, while nested squares align with solstice sunrises. Unlike the biomorphic glyphs, which often face random directions, the geometric ones show deliberate orientation, their corners pointing to mountain peaks used as natural observatories. The Nazca didn't just watch the skies, they etched their understanding into the earth itself. What's often overlooked is the labor behind these designs. While the animal figures were made by removing dark surface stones to expose lighter subsoil, the geometric glyphs required precise stacking of stones along their borders, a technique preventing wind erosion but demanding advanced engineering. This duality, ephemeral animal outlines versus enduring geometric structures, hints at two distinct purposes, one for fleeting ceremonial display, the other for perpetual utility. The most haunting detail, some mandalas contain tiny footpaths barely 12 inches wide, leading to central chambers no larger than a prayer mat. These weren't communal spaces, they were intimate, almost secretive. Were they meditation points for shamanic vision quests, or perhaps portals where the living could commune with the Huaca spirits believed to inhabit the landscape? The desert keeps its secrets, but the stones whisper of a culture that saw no divide between art, science, and the sacred. Scattered across Scotland's Neolithic sites lie some of history's most enigmatic artifacts, perfectly spherical stone balls, their surfaces studded with meticulously carved cup marks. These orbs, some small enough to fit in your palm, others as large as grapefruits, aren't just curiosities. They're masterpieces of prehistoric precision. Each one is a tactile puzzle, covered in a constellation of uniform depressions, 3, 6, even 60 cups arranged in mesmerizing geometric patterns. The consistency is uncanny. These aren't random dents, they're deliberate, almost mathematical in their arrangement, as if their creators were following some forgotten code. One of the most compelling theories suggests these balls functioned as celestial calculators. Certain cup mark groupings mirror star clusters visible in the northern sky during the Neolithic period. Picture a shaman or astronomer rolling the sphere between their hands, aligning specific cups with the horizon to predict solstices or lunar eclipses. Archaeologists have noted that some balls, when placed in sunlight, cast shadows that trace the same paths as celestial bodies across key dates in the agricultural calendar. It's a theory that transforms these stones from ritual objects into sophisticated astronomical tools, Stone Age planetariums hidden in plain sight. Then there's the oracle hypothesis. Similar cup-marked stones in other cultures, like the oracle bones of ancient China, were used for divination. Could these spheres have been rolled or heated, their cracks and landing positions interpreted as messages from the gods? Folklore from the Scottish Highlands speaks of clatch brath, or judgment stones, used to settle disputes or foretell outcomes. The wear patterns on some balls, particularly around the cup edges, show signs of repeated friction, as if fingers or instruments traced their grooves in ritual. But don't overlook the playful angle. Some researchers argue these could be Neolithic gaming pieces, part of a widespread board game tradition. The uniformity of the cups hints at standardized rules, while their portability suggests they might have been traded or used in communal gatherings. Games weren't just pastimes in ancient societies. They were tools for teaching strategy, bonding communities, or even simulating cosmic battles. Imagine warriors huddled around a fire, moving pebbles between cups in a game that blended chance, skill, and spirituality. The real stumper, these stones appear almost exclusively in Scotland, with no direct parallels elsewhere in Europe. Their local concentration suggests they were central to a cultural practice unique to these communities. Yet their craftsmanship reveals something universal: the human need to encode meaning into objects, to turn stone into story. Whether calendars, oracles, or game boards, these balls refuse to be pinned down. They roll through history, gathering theories like moss. Each cup marks a silent echo of minds we'll never fully understand. One thing's certain: whoever held these spheres millennia ago wasn't just holding a rock. They were holding a mystery, polished by time, waiting for us to ask the right questions. High on the sun-baked cliffs of Niger's Dabas region, two life-size giraffes stretch across the sandstone, their elegant necks forever frozen mid-stride. Carved around 8,000 years before the Common Era, these petroglyphs aren't just ancient art. They're a window into a lost world when the Sahara was a lush grassland teeming with life. The larger of the two giraffes towers over 18 feet, its body covered in intricate geometric patterns that seem to ripple under the desert light. But the real mystery lies in the symbols surrounding them. Grids of precise lines, clusters of dots, and spirals that coil like celestial snakes. Some researchers argue these markings could be among humanity's earliest star maps. The grids mirror the arrangement of Orion's belt as it would have appeared in the night sky millennia ago, while the dots might chart the movement of Venus or the phases of the moon. One tantalizing theory suggests the entire tableau functions as a prehistoric almanac, with the giraffe's legs aligning with specific stars during seasonal transitions, a way for nomadic herders to track migration or predict rains. Then there's the migration record hypothesis. The giraffes themselves, rendered with astonishing anatomical accuracy, could represent more than just hunted prey. Their positioning, one male, one female, might symbolize breeding seasons, while the accompanying dots and lines tally herd movements or water sources. Modern Tuareg tribes still use similar rock markings to denote oasis locations, hinting at an unbroken tradition stretching back thousands of years, but the grids hold another clue. When superimposed over the region's ancient riverbeds, their patterns align eerily with tributaries that once fed vanished lakes. Could these carvings double as hydrological maps, guiding early Saharans to life-giving water in an increasingly arid landscape? The giraffe's graceful forms might then serve as waypoint stone sentinels marking the intersection of survival and the sacred. What's undeniable is the skill behind these carvings. The artists didn't just scratch the surface, they pecked deep into the rock, creating shadows that shift with the sun's arc, turning static images into dynamic displays. At certain times of day, the geometric patterns catch the light in ways that make the dots seem to pulse, as if the stone itself is breathing, the most haunting detail. These giraffes were carved during the Sahara's last wet phase as the climate shifted toward desertification. In that context, the petroglyphs become more than art or science. They're a plea, a monument to a disappearing world. The grids and dots might not just record stars or rivers, they could be a language of loss, a way to freeze time before the grasslands faded to dust. Standing before these carvings today, you're not just looking at ancient symbols, you're witnessing a moment when humanity first tried to pin down the chaos of nature, to turn the unpredictable into patterns, to find meaning in the movement of stars and animals alike. The Dabus giraffes don't just tell us about the past, they whisper about the very birth of human curiosity. On the limestone canvas of Texas' Lower Pecos Canyonlands, the white shaman rock looms like a prehistoric story, its surface alive with towering, blood-red figures that seem to pulse against the stone. Painted over 4,000 years ago in the distinctive Pecos River style, this 7-panel mural isn't just art, it's a riddle wrapped in ochre and time. 5 central figures dominate the composition, their elongated bodies stretching over 15 feet tall, arms outstretched as if caught mid-ritual. Their heads are crowned with antlers or radiant halos, while between them float smaller, ghostly forms and geometric patterns resembling portals or celestial bodies. One school of thought interprets this as a creation narrative. Anthropologist Carolyn Boyd proposes these figures represent the foundational myth of the region's ancient peoples, the moment when the first shaman split into multiple beings, giving rise to human diversity. The central red figure, she argues, could be the original ancestor, his outstretched arms dividing into the 4 directions, while the smaller floating forms symbolize emerging clans or spirit helpers. Supporting this, modern Huichol traditions from Mexico recount nearly identical origin stories involving red-painted shamans and cosmic division. If correct, the white shaman rock becomes North America's oldest surviving creation epic, predating Genesis by millennia. But there's a competing, more visceral theory. The hallucinatory intensity of the figures, their vibrating outlines, morphing shapes, matches the visual distortions experienced during trance states induced by peyote or datura. Ethnobotanical evidence shows these plants grew abundantly in the region, and the mural's location near natural springs fits shamanic practice, where water served as a conduit to the spirit world. The portals might depict entry points to other realms, while the antlered figures could represent spirit guides encountered in altered states. Modern Huichol yarn paintings created after peyote ceremonies show uncannily similar imagery, suggesting a trans-temporal link between plant-induced visions and artistic expression. The third perspective turns from myth to history. Some archaeologists note weapons in the mural: atlatls, spear throwers, and darts positioned in ways that suggest conflict. Could this commemorate an actual battle or alliance between groups? The red pigment, often symbolic of life force in indigenous cultures, might denote sacred warfare or blood covenants. Radiocarbon dating places the painting during a period of climatic upheaval, when droughts could have sparked competition over resources. In this reading, the shaman figures become warrior chiefs, their outstretched arms not dividing the cosmos but brokering peace or declaring war. What chills the bones is the painting's preservation. The Pecos River style uses mineral-based pigments mixed with plant resins, creating a binder so durable it's resisted 4,000 years of scorching sun and flash floods. This wasn't casual doodling, it was a deliberate act of permanence, as if the artists intended their message to outlast civilizations. Even the rock's orientation feels intentional. During equinox sunsets, the low-angle light sets the red figures ablaze, their shadows stretching like living entities across the canyon wall. The white shaman rock refuses to fit neatly into any single interpretation. It could be all three: a creation story, a trippy vision, and a historical record layered like the strata of the cliff itself. What's undeniable is its power to transfix. Stand before it today, and those red figures still vibrate with urgency, as if the mural isn't just depicting a moment but holding it, suspending a fragment of the ancient world in perpetual motion. The answers might lie in the pigments themselves, waiting for new technologies to decode their chemistry. Until then, the rock keeps its secrets, whispering in a language of symbols we're only beginning to hear. Perched on the rugged cliffs of Uzbekistan's Sarmashe Gorge, a fleet of ancient petroglyphs glides silently across the rock-elongated boat-like shapes, each one cradling a radiant sun disk at its center. These 10,000-year-old carvings, known as the solar boat petroglyphs, aren't just primitive doodles, they're snapshots of a myth so powerful it spanned continents and millennia. The boat's curved hulls arc upward like crescent moons, their prows and sterns adorned with animal heads or geometric patterns, while the sun disks hover above them like celestial passengers. At first glance, they might seem like simple hunting scenes or shamanic visions, but their true significance cuts deeper, threading through the tapestry of Indo-European belief systems from the Vedas to the Vikings. One striking theory connects these petroglyphs to the Proto-Indo-European sun chariot myth, a foundational story where the sun traverses the sky in a divine vessel. The Sarmashe boats mirror descriptions found in the Rigveda, where the god Surya rides a golden chariot pulled by 7 horses, and in Greek mythology where Helios commands a fiery solar boat. Even Norse legends speak of the sun being carried by the horse Arvaka across the heavens. The consistency is uncanny. From India to Scandinavia, cultures separated by thousands of miles and years shared this vision of the sun as a voyager, not just a stationary light. Could the Sarmashe petroglyphs be the earliest known depiction of this shared myth? The timing fits. These carvings predate the split of Indo-European languages, making them a possible visual prototype for the stories that would later echo across civilizations. But there's another layer to these solar boats. Some researchers argue they might represent actual vessels used in funeral rites, carrying the dead to the afterlife. The sun disks could symbolize rebirth, echoing the solar deities daily, death at dusk and rebirth at dawn. This duality, cosmology and mortality, finds parallels in Egyptian solar barks and even Mesoamerican death canoes. The petroglyph's location adds weight to this idea. Sarmashe's cliffs overlook ancient trade routes where rituals for safe passage, both literal and spiritual, would have held immense significance. Imagine mourners gathering here, etching boats into the stone as prayers for their loved one's journey into the next world. Then there's the astronomical angle. Certain solar boat carvings align with the rising sun during equinoxes, their disks catching the first light like prehistoric mirrors. Others cluster near natural fissures in the rock, where shadow play at solstice creates the illusion of boats sailing as the sun moves. This interplay of art and environment suggests the carvers didn't just depict myths, they activated them, turning static rock into a dynamic celestial theater. The most haunting question is why this symbol endured. From the Sarmashe cliffs to the sun chariots of Bronze Age Europe and the solar barges of pharaonic Egypt, the motif resurfaces with stubborn persistence. Perhaps it taps into something primal, the human instinct to explain the sun's motion as a journey, to frame the incomprehensible in terms we can grasp. Or maybe these carvings mark the routes of early migrations, their symbols carried westward by nomadic tribes like cultural seeds. What's certain is that these petroglyphs are more than local oddities. They're fragments of a story older than agriculture, older than cities, a story written in boat hulls and sun disks, waiting on a cliff face for us to decode. The Sarmashe solar boats don't just float on rock, They sail through time, bridging the gap between the first storytellers and the myths we still tell today. Rising from the misty moorlands of Scotland's Isle of Lewis, the Callanish stones form a jagged crown against the sky, a labyrinth of towering megaliths arranged in a cross-shaped pattern older than Stonehenge. But it's not just their age or arrangement that captivates researchers. It's the peculiar symbols carved into their bases and the way the entire site seems to hum in harmony with the moon's most elusive dance. Unlike solar alignments, which repeat yearly, Callanish whispers secrets tied to an 18.6-year lunar cycle, a celestial rhythm so slow most cultures never built monuments to track it. Yet here, Neolithic architects did just that, etching rare eye and branch motifs that light up only during major lunar standstills, those fleeting moments when the moon pauses at its farthest point from Earth's orbit. The eye carvings are the real enigma. These oval depressions, often paired with radiating lines, appear on just 3 stones, all positioned where the moon's southernmost rise grazes the horizon during a standstill. During this event, the low-hanging moon casts shadows that animate the symbols, making the eyes appear to blink open as the light shifts. It's no accident. Archaeoastronomers have mapped these alignments with laser precision, proving the carvers accounted for atmospheric refraction, the way Earth's atmosphere bends light near the horizon. Whoever designed Callanish didn't just observe the sky, they anticipated its distortions, a sophistication that rewrites our assumptions about prehistoric science. Then there are the branch motifs, jagged, tree-like patterns that mirror the moon's erratic path during standstills. Unlike the smooth arc of a typical moonrise, these extreme lunar events create a stair-step trajectory where the moon appears to hang, reverse slightly, then surge forward. The branches' zigzag lines capture this perfectly, almost like a frozen snapshot of celestial movement. Even more startling, similar symbols appear in contemporaneous rock art in Brittany and Ireland, suggesting a shared lunar language among Neolithic astronomers. Were these carvings mnemonic devices helping oral cultures remember a cycle longer than a generation? Or were they ritual markers signaling when to conduct ceremonies tied to the moon's peak influence? Local folklore adds another layer. Gaelic myths describe Callanish as a place where the moon walks, and tell of stone giants who could halt the moon's motion, stories that eerily echo the standstill phenomenon. Modern experiments reveal something spine-tingling. During these events, the stones cast interlacing shadows that form a sprawling, spidery web across the ground, with the central monolith as its hub. It's as if the monument transforms into a colossal lunar clock, its gears made of stone and light. What's most humbling is the patience behind this knowledge. Tracking an 18-year cycle requires lifetimes of meticulous record-keeping, a feat that challenges our stereotype of primitive societies. Callanish's architects weren't just building for their generation. They were crafting a beacon for descendants they'd never meet, encoding lunar secrets in stone and shadow. Today, when the standstill moon rises over those weathered pillars, the eyes still open, the branches still tremble, reminders that the sky's oldest rhythms are written here, waiting for those who know how to look. High on the sandstone cliffs of Bhimbetka, India, the oldest known human-made symbols stare back at us, simple, perfectly round cup marks carved into the rock over 700,000 years ago. These unassuming depressions, called cupules, predate modern humans by 500,000 years, their creators likely an archaic species like Homo erectus. At first glance, they might seem like random pits, but their precision tells another story. Each cupule is uniform in depth, clustered in deliberate groupings, and often arranged in geometric pattern, circles, lines, even spirals, that defy natural explanation. Some are so smooth inside they appear polished, as if touched by countless hands across millennia. One of the most compelling theories suggests these cupules were an early counting system. Certain groupings recur in clusters of 7 or 28, numbers corresponding to lunar cycles. Anthropologists point to similar markings in Australia and Africa, where indigenous cultures used cup-shaped holes to tally days or record important events. Imagine a Homo erectus tracker etching a new cupule for each full moon, creating a stone-bound calendar that stretched across generations. The wear patterns support this. Many cupules show smoothed edges from repeated contact, as if fingers traced them in ritual or recollection. Then there's the sonic hypothesis. When struck with certain stones, some Bhimbetka cupules produce resonant tones, their pitches varying with depth and spacing. Ethnographic records from Borneo to Brazil describe rock gongs used in ceremonies, where specific rhythms were believed to summon spirits or signal across distances. Could these cupules be the world's first musical instruments, their rhythms echoing through Pleistocene forests? Experiments confirm that striking them in sequence creates melodic patterns, hinting at a prehistoric understanding of acoustics long before formal music emerged. But skeptics argue erosion could explain the shapes that wind or water wore natural hollows into the rock, later enhanced by human hands. Yet the density of cupules in ritual spaces undermines this. They cluster near painted rock shelters from later periods, as if marking sacred ground. Some even appear beneath ochre hand stencils, suggesting intentional layering of symbolic acts across ages. What's undeniable is their endurance. These cupules survived ice ages and the rise and fall of species. They watched as later artists painted vibrant scenes of horses and hunters on the same cliffs, their own meaning fading into obscurity. Were they prayers, records, or something we've yet to imagine? The stones won't say, but their silence is itself a message, a whisper from a time when symbolism was born, one careful tap at a time. High in Norway's Alta Fjord, where the Arctic light stretches thin and the wind carries echoes of the Ice Age, a series of red ochre paintings pulse against the granite cliffs, 6,200-year-old masterpieces known as the Alta shamanic scenes. These aren't just static images, they're frozen moments of transformation where human figures melt seamlessly into animal forms, their limbs elongating into antlers, their hunched backs morphing into bear humps, their fingers stretching into talons. The most arresting of these hybrids depicts a towering figure with a bear's head and a human torso, its arms raised as if mid-ritual, surrounded by a menagerie of reindeer, whales, and birds in flight. To modern eyes, it might look like fantasy art, but to the ancient peoples of the Arctic, this was likely a portrait of something profoundly real, the shaman's journey between worlds. What makes these paintings extraordinary is their connection to surviving Sami traditions. The Sami, indigenous to northern Scandinavia, still practice a form of bear worship, where the animal is seen as a sacred mediator between humans and the spirit world. Their Noidi, or shamans, enter trance states to take on animal attributes, much like the Alta hybrids. Oral histories describe rituals where the Noidi's soul becomes a bear or reindeer, traversing the upper and lower realms to retrieve lost souls or divine the future. The Alta paintings could be the earliest visual record of this practice, a prehistoric snapshot of beliefs that have endured for millennia. But the cosmology here runs deeper than individual transformation. The arrangement of animals isn't random. Reindeer cluster near human figures in ways that mirror migratory patterns, while whales and fish swirl in compositions that suggest seasonal cycles. One panel even shows a human figure gripping a line connected to a whale, a possible depiction of spiritual hunting where the shaman symbolically captures the animal's essence before the physical hunt begins. This wasn't just art, it was a form of sympathetic magic, a way to ensure survival in one of Earth's harshest environments. Then there's the red ochre itself. Analysis reveals it was mixed with animal fat and applied in layers, creating a texture that would have glistened in firelight. Many paintings are placed near natural sound amplifiers, concave rock formations that turn whispers into echoes. Imagine ceremonies here, the shaman chanting, the flickering torchlight animating the figures, the stones themselves seeming to breathe as shadows danced across the hybrid's forms. The effect would have been staggering, a full sensory ritual where the boundary between human and animal dissolved entirely. Modern archaeologists debate whether these scenes record actual trance experiences or idealized visions. Neuropsychological studies offer a clue. The zigzag lines and radiating patterns around some figures match the geometric hallucinations reported during altered states. Similar motifs appear in rock art from the Amazon to the Australian outback, suggesting a universal grammar of human consciousness under trance. The altar artists might have been drawing what they saw behind closed eyes, mapping the spirit world as faithfully as their physical surroundings. Yet the most haunting detail is the painting's endurance. 6,000 years of blizzards, storms, and freezing temperatures haven't erased them. The ochre binds to the stone at a molecular level, as if the artists knew their work needed to outlast empires. And perhaps they were right. Today, Sami activists point to these paintings as proof of their ancestral ties to the land, a visual lineage stretching back to the very dawn of human imagination. The altar hybrids aren't just relics, they're mirrors reflecting the oldest human urge to reach beyond ourselves, to wear the skin of the wild, and to bring back stories from the other side. Deep in the heart of France's Chauvet Cave, where the walls ripple with the oldest known figurative art on Earth, one panel stands apart not for its dynamic mammoths or charging rhinos, but for its eerie stillness. Here, 3 owl heads stack vertically, their faceless profiles reduced to stark geometric forms, 2 inverted triangles for the beak and brow, blank circles where eyes should be. This 36,000-year-old composition is humanity's oldest known depiction of an owl, and its strangeness only deepens the longer you look. Unlike the cave's other animals rendered with lifelike motion, these owls feel abstracted, almost symbolic. Their heads float against a backdrop of zigzagging lines and dots patterns that pulse with rhythmic precision, as if encoding a message beyond mere representation. Owls are vanishingly rare in Paleolithic art, which makes their presence here even more striking. One theory suggests they held dual significance, both practical and mystical. Modern hunter-gatherer cultures often view owls as omens or spirit messengers, their nocturnal habits linking them to the unseen world. The Chauvet artists might have associated them with secrecy or death, given their ability to navigate darkness. But there's a pragmatic angle too. Owl talons and feathers found at other European Paleolithic sites hint they were hunted for tools or ritual adornments. The stacked heads could represent a form of prehistoric inventory, a tally of successful hunts or a record of clan encounters with these elusive birds. Then there's the mesmerizing background. The zigzags and dots framing the owls don't appear randomly. They cluster in deliberate sequences, mirroring patterns found in altered states of consciousness. Neuropsychological studies show that humans in trance states frequently see similar geometric shapes, phasic patterns hardwired into our visual cortex. Could the panel depict a shamanic vision where the owl served as a spirit guide through these hallucinatory realms? The cave's acoustics amplify this possibility. The owl panel resides in a chamber where sound reverberates unnaturally, amplifying whispers into echoes. Combined with flickering torchlight, the space would have transformed these zigzags into a dynamic, pulsing field, a perfect setting for ritual trance. Yet another interpretation ties the composition to celestial events. The stacked heads align with the vertical rise of Orion's belt as it appeared 36 millennia ago, while the zigzags match the erratic paths of prehistoric comets recorded in ice core data from that era. If correct, the panel might merge earthly and cosmic symbolism, with the owl a creature of the night sky, serving as a bridge between realms. What's most haunting is the panel's isolation. Unlike the communal galleries of mammoths and lions, this artwork hides in a narrow side passage, suggesting it was meant for private contemplation or initiation. The absence of body details, no wings, no feathers, implies the artists weren't depicting an animal but an idea. Those blank circles aren't missing eyes, they're portals inviting the viewer to look deeper. Today, the owls remain enigmatic. They could be a spiritual cipher, a hunting record, or a star map, but their power lies in their ambiguity. They don't just represent an owl, they become owlness itself, an essence carved in ochre and time, waiting for us to decode its silent language. Towering above the sacred valley in Peru, the Temple of the Sun at Ollantaytambo holds a secret carved into its ancient stones, the chacana, or Andean cross, a symbol so profound it bridges the physical and spiritual worlds. At first glance, it appears deceptively simple, a stepped cross with 12 points, its edges notched like a stairway to the heavens. But this design is no mere decoration. It's a cosmic blueprint, a geometric key to how pre-Inca civilizations understood existence itself. The earliest iterations of the chacana date back over 2,000 years, appearing as basic stepped patterns on pottery and textiles. These primitive versions likely represented the cardinal directions or the tiers of the Andes terraced agriculture. But over centuries, the symbol evolved into something far more intricate. By the time of the Wari and Tiwanaku cultures, the chacana had become a layered mandala, each of its 12 points corresponding to a month in the solar calendar, its central circle symbolizing Cusco, the navel of the world, and the 3 steps on each arm mapping the 3 realms of Andean cosmology, the underworld Ukupacha, the earthly plane Kpacha, and the celestial realm Honenpacha. What makes the Temple of the Sun's chacana extraordinary is its alignment. During the June solstice, sunlight pierces a precisely carved niche in the temple wall, casting a shadow that transforms the static symbol into a dynamic sundial. The light splits the chacana diagonally, illuminating only the upper steps Honenpacha, as if activating a portal to the divine. Modern astronomers have noted that the angles of these shadows mirror the Milky Way's position during key agricultural festivals, suggesting the symbol wasn't just spiritual but practical, a way to synchronize ritual with the rhythms of the cosmos. Yet the chacana's genius lies in its duality. The 3 steps aren't just hierarchical, they're interdependent. Honenpacha isn't above Ukupacha in a moral sense, it's a balance like the roots, trunk, and branches of a tree. This mirrors Andean concepts of Yanantin, the belief that opposites like light and dark must coexist to create wholeness. The chacana's arms extend equally in all directions, reinforcing this idea of equilibrium. Even its hollow center carries meaning, a reminder that enlightenment comes not from filling oneself with knowledge, but from emptying ego to connect with the eternal. Comparisons to other global symbols deepen the mystery. The chacana's step design echoes the Mesopotamian ziggurat, the Hindu temple's Vimana, and even the Buddhist mandala. Cultures separated by oceans yet united in their architectural metaphors for spiritual ascent. But unlike these static forms, the chacana pulses with motion. Modern Quechua weavers still depict it with serpents coiled around its arms, symbolizing the constant flow of energy between worlds. Some scholars argue this kinetic quality reflects Andean observations of celestial motion, the Milky Way's shifting position, the sun's annual journey encoded into geometry. The most haunting question isn't how the chacana was designed, but why its creators chose to embed it so prominently at Ollantaytambo. The temple was a fortress, a sanctuary, and an astronomical observatory. Its chacana isn't just carved, it's built into the masonry itself, stones cut to form the symbol's outline when viewed from specific vantage points. This wasn't art, it was architecture as theology, a way to fuse human ambition with cosmic order. When the Spanish tried to dismantle the temple, they found the stones interlocked too perfectly to remove, as if the chacana's balance protected it from violation. Today, the symbol endures. You'll spot it in modern Peru, on street murals, jewelry, even the presidential sash, but its true power lingers in the temple's shadows, where solstice light still traces the paths the ancients left behind. The Chakana doesn't just represent the three worlds, it invites us to walk them one step at a time. Tucked away in the cave of La Marche in western France, a gallery of faces stares silently from slabs of limestone 15,000 years of history etched with stunning realism. These aren't the usual abstract stick figures or animal silhouettes of Paleolithic art. These are portraits, individuals with distinct features, expressions, and even what appear to be personal adornments. One figure wears a patterned headband, another has carefully detailed hair, and several are framed by strange, radiant lines that arc around their heads like halos. At first glance, these luminous outlines might resemble the religious iconography of later centuries, but these markings predate organized religion by millennia. So what do they really mean? One compelling theory suggests these halos could depict elaborate headdresses used in rituals. Ethnographic studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies show that ceremonial attire often includes feathered or bone-adorned headpieces, symbols of status or spiritual roles. The La Marche figures with halos might represent shamans or clan leaders, their headwear glowing in torchlight to signify authority. Supporting this, some halos are rendered with cross-hatching or dots, patterns seen in later Neolithic artifacts believed to represent woven materials or beadwork. Imagine the scene, flickering firelight animating these portraits, the engraved lines catching the glow like actual headdresses shimmering in the dark. But there's a more esoteric possibility. These radiant lines might not be physical at all, they could depict energy. Across cultures, halos and auras symbolize spiritual power, from the golden nimbus of Buddhist deities to the luminous ka of ancient Egyptian art. The La Marche artists could have been visualizing something intangible, the life force or spiritual essence of the individuals portrayed. Neuropsychological research adds fuel to this idea. During altered states of consciousness, humans often report seeing luminous geometries or radiating light around living beings. If these portraits were inspired by shamanic visions, the halos might be literal translations of what the artist saw in trance, an early attempt to capture the unseen. Yet another angle ties the halos to celestial phenomena. The late Ice Age was a time of dramatic climatic shifts, with frequent auroras and meteor showers due to heightened solar activity. Could these arcs represent celestial events witnessed by the artists, a way to immortalize the awe of a sky alive with light? Some halos resemble the arcs of sundogs, atmospheric illusions caused by ice crystals refracting sunlight. For a culture deeply attuned to natural cycles, such phenomena might have held divine significance, framing certain individuals as intermediaries between earth and sky. The realism of the portraits only deepens the mystery. Unlike the stylized animals of Lascaux or Chauvet, these faces are strikingly human, some smiling, others somber, a few even wrinkled with age. One shows a man with a neatly trimmed beard, another a woman with her hair parted down the middle. This level of detail suggests these weren't generic symbols but actual people, memorialized in stone for reasons we can only guess. Were they ancestors, heroes, or perhaps spirit guides, their halos marking them as denizens of another realm? What's most haunting is the context. These engraved slabs weren't displayed prominently. They were found scattered on the cave floor, some face down, as if deliberately hidden or discarded. This wasn't art for public veneration. It was something more personal, more secretive. Perhaps the acts of carving and viewing were rituals in themselves, the halos activated by touch or recitation before being returned to the earth. Today, the La Marche faces remain an enigma, their halos hovering at the edge of interpretation. They challenge our assumptions about prehistoric art, proving that Ice Age minds were as capable of individuality and introspection as our own. Those radiant lines, whether headdresses, auras, or celestial signs, whisper the same message across millennia. Some truths can't be spoken, only shown. And even then, they keep their secrets. Perched atop an extinct volcanic outcrop in northeast Scotland, the ruins of Dunadir Hill Fort guard a cryptic secret: thin, straight-line carvings etched into weathered stone, their patterns eerily reminiscent of Ogham, the later Celtic tree alphabet. But here's the twist: these marks predate known Ogham by over 1,000 years, their origins lost in the shadows of prehistory. Unlike the flowing curves of Pictish symbols found elsewhere, these glyphs are starkly geometric parallel lines branching from a central stem like bare winter twigs, some clustered in groups of 5 or 10, others solitary and mysterious. One compelling theory suggests these could be Neolithic tally marks, an early system for recording trade, lunar cycles, or even ancestral lineages. The groupings align with base 5 counting methods used by later Iron Age cultures, hinting at an unbroken tradition of numerical notation. Archaeologists have noted similar linear carvings near burial cairns in the region, often positioned where sunlight strikes during solstices, as if the marks served as both ledger and calendar. Imagine a hill fort scribe notching stone to track grain stores or the passing of seasons, each line a silent witness to a thriving, organized society. But the tree language angle is equally fascinating. While Ogham's letters are named for trees, Dunadir's marks might represent something more primal, a proto-language tied to sacred groves. The hill fort overlooks what was once a dense forest, and the carving's branching forms mirror the silhouette of oaks against the sky. Some scholars argue these could be boundary markers for ritual spaces, their lines mapping the arrangement of trees or root systems below ground. Folklore adds weight to this idea. Local legends speak of talking stones that whispered secrets to those who understood their language. Then there's the astronomical hypothesis. Certain carvings align with the rise of specific stars during the Bronze Age, their angles matching the position of Orion's belt as it appeared 3,000 years ago. One particularly dense cluster of lines frames the winter solstice sunrise when viewed from the hill fort summit, transforming the stone into a prehistoric observatory. Unlike later Celtic Ogham, which was primarily commemorative, these marks might have been functional, a way to anchor myth to the movements of the heavens. The real enigma lies in their isolation. While Ogham spread across Ireland and Wales, Dunadir's marks appear nowhere else in Scotland. Were they the experimental precursor to a writing system that died out? Or perhaps a localized code understood only by the hill fort's inhabitants? The stones won't say, but their silence speaks volumes, a reminder that every line, every groove was once a living thought waiting to be read. Emerging from the thick Sichuan clay after 3 millennia buried in darkness, the bronze masks of Sangsingdui stop you cold, not just for their haunting, otherworldly expressions, but for one hypnotic detail: their eyebrows. These aren't mere facial features, they're spiraling coils of metal curling outward like solar flares or crashing waves, each twist precise enough to seem machined. Dating back to China's mysterious Shu kingdom around 1200 BCE, these masks weren't meant to resemble human faces. Those exaggerated brows, some stretching twice the width of the mask itself, are shouting something, but what? One school of thought ties them to shamanic transformation. Across ancient Eurasian cultures, spirals symbolized ascension, the soul's journey skyward. The brow's upward coils might represent ecstatic flight, a visual metaphor for mediators bridging earth and heaven. Supporting this, many masks have hollow eye sockets, suggesting they once held inserts of jade or turquoise materials believed to channel spiritual energy. Imagine these masks worn in twilight ceremonies, torchlight glinting off their metallic curls, the shaman's chants vibrating through the bronze as those spiral brows seem to spin with otherworldly motion. Even the material choice feels intentional. Bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, was considered sacred across ancient cultures for its transformative alchemy, earth ores reborn as luminous metal. The brow's molten curves could embody that metamorphosis, turning ritual into metallurgical magic. Then there's the ancestor connection. These masks were discovered alongside life-sized bronze heads, some with gold leaf still clinging to their features. Archaeologists argue they might depict deified forebears, their spiral brows marking divine status. In later Chinese art, exaggerated eyebrows denote wisdom or supernatural power. Think of the elongated brows of Taoist immortals. The Shu people, lacking a written record, may have used these metallic arches as a visual language, signaling, "This is no mortal face." The most striking example is the largest mask found, a gargantuan artifact with protruding pupils and brows that erupt into double helixes, as if depicting a being mid-transformation. But the wildcard theory lost technology. The spiral's geometric perfection is unnerving for its era. Some brows mimic the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern found in galaxies and nautilus shells centuries before its formal discovery. Even more puzzling, the masks contain traces of zinc, a metal notoriously difficult to smelt at the time. Could the brows encode advanced knowledge like copper coils in modern circuitry? It's a stretch, but not impossible. The Shu were master metallurgists, their bronze unmatched in contemporaneous cultures. Those spirals might be more than art. They could be diagrams, blueprints for everything from torsion springs to celestial navigation tools. The context deepens the puzzle. Sangsingdui's artifacts were ritually broken and buried, their fragments carefully arranged. This wasn't haphazard destruction, it was systematic decommissioning. Perhaps the brow's power was too potent to leave intact, or their meaning too sacred to risk falling into profane hands. Today, they captivate because they refuse categorization. Are they wings, waves, or something we've yet to name? When you stand before these masks in a museum, those spirals seem to vibrate, pulling your gaze upward just as they were designed to do. The message is clear. Some truths twist beyond words, coiled in metal and waiting. High on the sheer cliffs of Mali's Bandiagara escarpment, a constellation of painted dots stretches across the rust-colored rock. Some clustered tight as stars in a nebula, others scattered like grains of sand tossed by the wind. These aren't random markings, they're the work of the Dogon people, a culture whose astronomical knowledge has baffled researchers for decades. At first glance, the dots might seem like simple clan symbols or boundary markers, but look closer and patterns emerge. Groups of dots aligning in ways that mirror the night sky, particularly the star system of Sirius, the brightest in our heavens and the heart of Dogon cosmology. What makes these dots extraordinary is their potential connection to Sirius's invisible companion, Sirius B, a white dwarf star so dense and dim it wasn't proven by Western astronomers until the 19th century. Yet Dogon oral traditions have spoken of this dark sister star for generations, describing its elliptical orbit and incredible weight. The cliff dots, when mapped against specific cave walls, appear to chart Sirius B's path with startling accuracy. Some clusters even correspond to the star's 50-year orbital cycle, a detail that would require meticulous celestial observation over lifetimes. Could these painted dots be a prehistoric star chart, preserving astronomical knowledge passed down through initiates? The Dogon's own creation myths lend weight to this theory. They speak of amphibious beings called the Nommo, who descended from Sirius bearing wisdom, a story that, when paired with the dots' precision, suggests an ancient awareness of cosmic phenomena that telescopes would only confirm millennia later. But there's another, more earthly explanation. Anthropologists note that many dots align with natural fissures in the rock, forming pathways to hidden caves where grain or ritual objects were stored. In this reading, the dots function as a practical guide, a way for clans to mark territory or denote sacred spaces. Some groupings mirror the layout of nearby villages, as if the cliffs themselves were a mirror to the community below. The Dogon's famed stargazing might have simply layered new meaning onto older, utilitarian symbols, transforming them into celestial maps over time. The debate grows richer when you consider the dots' material. The pigment isn't just ochre, it's mixed with a binder made from baobab sap, a substance the Dogon associate with immortality. This isn't casual graffiti, it's alchemy, blending art, science, and spirituality into a single medium. During ceremonies, elders point to specific dot clusters while recounting serious myths, their fingers tracing connections between earth and sky. The cliffs become a classroom, the dots a curriculum written in light and stone. What's haunting is the duality. These markings refuse to be pinned as purely sacred or purely practical. They're both a reminder that for the Dogon, the celestial and the terrestrial were never separate. The same dots that guided hunters to caves might also chart the dance of distant stars. The cliffs don't just hold symbols, they hold a worldview, one where every mark on Earth echoes a pattern in the heavens. And perhaps that's the real lesson here, not whether the dots are star maps or storage notes, but how they blur the line between the two, revealing a culture that saw no divide between the mundane and the cosmic. The Bandiagara dots don't just point upward or inward, they point to a way of seeing where every mark, no matter how small, carries the weight of the universe. Before it toppled in the 18th century, the Grand Menhir Brisset at Karnak stood as Europe's tallest standing stone, a colossal sentinel stretching 65 feet into the sky, dwarfing even Stonehenge's mightiest monoliths. But it's not just the stone's size that captivates. It's the enigmatic carvings hidden along its weathered flanks, serpentine grooves winding down its surface like rivulets of liquid stone. These aren't the geometric spirals or cup marks common to other megaliths. They're sinuous, almost organic, as if the stone itself had veins pulsing with some ancient force. One of the most striking theories links these grooves to prehistoric water cults. The Grand Menhir once stood near a now-vanished estuary, its base licked by tidal waters during storms. The grooves align with natural fissures in the stone, creating channels that would have directed rainwater in hypnotic patterns, a deliberate hydraulic spectacle. Archaeologists have found similar serpent motifs at nearby Neolithic springs, often paired with offerings of seashells and polished pebbles. Could the menhir's carvings have transformed it into a sacred conduit, channeling both literal and symbolic tides between earth and water? Modern dowsers still report eerie energy surges near its fallen fragments, fueling speculation that the grooves acted as amplifiers for terrestrial currents. Then there's the seismic angle. Brittany sits atop a network of fault lines, and the grooves' undulating paths mirror the waveforms of earthquakes recorded in sediment layers from the same era. Some researchers suggest the menhir served as a monumental seismograph, its carvings encoding ancestral memories of catastrophic tremors. Local legends speak of a stone that sang before the earth shook, hinting at a forgotten early warning system. The groove's depth varies rhythmically, shallow at the top, deepening toward the base as if calibrated to resonate with specific frequencies. When struck with certain rocks, experiments show the menhir's fragments produce low-frequency tones that travel unnervingly far through bedrock. Was this a Neolithic attempt to harness sound as a tool of communication or divination? The earth energy theory takes it further. Ley line enthusiasts have mapped the menhir's original position as a nexus where multiple energy paths converge. The grooves, they argue, aren't random. They trace the intersection of these invisible lines, turning the stone into a kind of prehistoric power station. Satellite imagery reveals that the menhir's alignment points directly to the Gavrinis tomb, 5 miles away, whose own walls are covered in similar serpent carvings. This wasn't just artistry, it was a network, a landscape-wide circuit board etched in stone. But perhaps the most haunting detail is the menhir's deliberate destruction. It didn't fall naturally, it was toppled, possibly during the Roman conquest, and shattered into 4 precise fragments. Yet the grooves on each piece still align perfectly when reassembled, proof of their intentional placement. Whoever carved them meant for their message to survive, even in pieces. Today, the Grand Menhir lies like a dismembered giant, its symbols still pulsing with questions. Were they maps, prayers, or warnings, the stones won't say, but their grooves still catch the light at dawn, shimmering like water, or something far older rising to the surface. Buried beneath the marshy soils of China's Henan province, the carved turtle shells of Jaya, who whisper a tantalizing secret they may hold the earliest known attempt at human writing. Dating back 9,000 years, these fractured fragments bear markings that look eerily deliberate, clusters of lines, crosses, and geometric shapes etched with a precision that defies randomness. Unlike the later, more famous oracle bone script of the Shang dynasty, these symbols are simpler, more abstract, yet their arrangement feels purposeful, as if each mark were part of a code waiting to be cracked. One of the most striking shells features a sequence of 11 distinct symbols, some resembling modern Chinese characters for eye and water, while others remain entirely enigmatic. This has sparked fierce debate. Are these primitive doodles ritualistic notations or the birth pangs of a true writing system? Archaeologists who support the proto-writing theory point to the symbol's recurrence across multiple shells, suggesting standardized meaning. The fact that they appear almost exclusively on turtle plastrons, the same medium used millennia later for Shang divination, hints at an unbroken tradition of shell-based symbolism stretching back to the dawn of Chinese civilization. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Some scholars argue these markings might represent an early form of divination, a practice deeply woven into later Chinese culture. The shells were found near burial sites, and many bear signs of heating, a technique used in pyro-osteomancy where cracks from burned bones were read as omens. Could the Jiahu carvings be ritual annotations, records of auspicious or inauspicious cracks? The parallel to Shang oracle bones is uncanny, though separated by 5,000 years. Yet others counter that the symbol's complexity surpasses mere divinatory tallies. Their linear sequences resemble syntax, the building blocks of language, not just isolated sacred marks. Then there's the cultural context. Jiahu was no backwater. It was a sophisticated Neolithic settlement with evidence of rice cultivation, bone flutes, and even fermented beverages. These weren't people scratching random lines, they were artisans, musicians, and possibly scribes experimenting with the first glimmers of written communication. The turtle, revered in Chinese cosmology as a creature bridging heaven and earth, adds another layer. By inscribing these sacred animals, the Jiahu people might have been engaging in a dialogue with the divine, turning shells into messengers between worlds. What's most haunting is the gap between Jiahu's symbols and the Shang dynasty's mature script stretches millennia of silence, no surviving text, no clear evolutionary path. Did the knowledge fade only to be rediscovered later, or was Jiahu part of a lost lineage of writing systems that flourished and vanished without a trace? The shells refuse to say, but their very existence rewrites history, proving that the human urge to record, to communicate, to reach beyond the tangible is far older than we ever imagined. Standing in a museum today, peering at these fragile fragments, you're not just looking at markings, you're witnessing humanity's first fumbling steps toward capturing thought in form. Whether prayer, prophecy, or prose, the Jiahu shells remind us that every symbol, no matter how ancient, began as someone's desperate, beautiful attempt to say, "I was here." This mattered, and perhaps that's the most powerful language of all. From the spirals of Newgrange to the solar boats of Uzbekistan, these 30 symbols form a global tapestry of mystery, each one a puzzle left behind by cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Think of the Dabus giraffes in Niger, their geometric grids mapping forgotten star patterns, or the Sanxingdui masks in China, their spiraling brows hinting at lost metallurgical secrets. They weren't just scribbles in stone, they were deliberate, sophisticated attempts to encode knowledge, ritual, and belief. The sheer diversity of these symbols shatters the myth of prehistoric people as primitive or uncurious. How could the same spiral appear in Malta, Ireland, and Peru, crafted by hands that never met? Why do grids and dots recur from the Sahara to Scotland, as if humanity shared a silent visual language long before words? What's even more humbling is how many of these symbols defy modern interpretation. We can decode ancient scripts unraveled DNA, yet stand baffled before a cupule in India or a zigzag in France. The Chauvet owl's halo, the Lamarche face's radiant lines, these weren't random. They pulsed with meaning for the people who made them, bridging the tangible and the unseen. And that's the real challenge, accepting that some ancient knowledge may be irrevocably lost, dissolved like the stories told around fires that died out 10,000 years ago. So here's the question that lingers: what else is out there, beneath unexcavated mounds, hidden in plain sight on weathered cliffs, or tucked into caves still unexplored? What messages remain locked in symbols we've yet to notice, or simply fail to understand? The past isn't silent, it's whispering, and maybe, just maybe, the next great decipherment won't come from a dusty textbook, but from someone watching this very video. What do you think these symbols meant? Drop your wildest theories below, because the truth isn't just buried in the ground, it's etched in stone.